Hi everyone, today we are going to study the system development life cycle. The system development life cycle is also known as SDLC in short. So, you can also call it by the name of SDLC or system development life cycle. The development of information system often follows a life cycle. So, basically it is the system development life cycle that we are talking about is about the life cycle of an information system. That means, what are the various stages from the starting to the end till we finally get the information system. So, all those phases in which an information system is developed are known as system development life cycle, which is basically depicting what? The life cycle of system development. The system development life cycle or SDLC is a common methodology for systems development in many organizations, featuring various phases that mark the progress of the system analysis and design effort. So, basically it is a common methodology which is used in many organizations, so that the process of system development becomes easier and less complex. So, this entire process is divided into various stages or phases, and all those phases together are known as system development life cycle or SDLC. So, it is a common methodology which is used by many organizations for the task of developing a new information system, and this methodology, known by the name of SDLC or system development life cycle, has various phases. It is divided into phases to make the entire process of system development less complex. So, we divide the entire process into various phases, which are basically doing what? Which are marking the progress of system analysis and the design effort put in by the system analyst. The system development life cycle used in an organization is an orderly set of activities conducted and planned for each development project. Now, it says that the system development life cycle which is used in an organization. So, this is basically what? This is a methodology, and this methodology is an orderly set of activities. So, when I say orderly set of activities, that means all the activities are done in a specific order, neither before nor after. So, when I say orderly set of activities, by activity means those phases into which the SDLC is divided. So, all the phases which are termed as activity over here are in a particular order or are in a particular sequence. They cannot occur before or they cannot occur after. The reason behind this is that the output of one phase serves as the input of another phase. So, for that reason we say it is an orderly set of activities, obviously, which is conducted and planned for what? For each development project. So, here you see the diagram or the diagrammatic representation of SDLC, that what are the various phases or stages into which a system development life cycle is divided. So, the first phase is project initiation and planning. The second phase is project identification. The third phase is analysis. The fourth phase is the logical design. The fifth phase is the physical design. The sixth phase is the implementation, and the seventh and the last phase is the maintenance phase. So, you can see that there are total 7 phases in system development life cycle, starting from project initiation and planning and ending at maintenance, which is an ongoing activity. So, these are the phases of system development life cycle. Now, as I said, these phases are sequential. So, that means the orderly set of activities, as I said, that means sequential phases. So, sequential phases means each phase will be in that particular sequence only, neither before nor after. So, the first phase will always be project initiation and planning. You cannot do project identification before project initiation and planning. Similarly, the second step will always be project identification, third analysis, and so on. Now, we will study all these phases of SDLC that we just saw in the diagram in detail. So, I will just repeat it once again. The various phases or the 7 phases of SDLC are project identification and selection, project initiation and planning, analysis, logical design, physical design, implementation, testing. So, basically we can say that we have divided the methodology for the development of information system, which we call by the name of SDLC, into 7 different phases, and all these phases are sequential. That is why we say that SDLC methodology is an orderly set of activities, because each activity, be it project identification and selection, be it project initiation and planning, will be done in a specific order and not out of order. So, first phase will always be project identification and selection, second phase will always be project initiation and planning, and so on. And then comes the last phase, which is your testing and maintenance, and maintenance is an ongoing phase. These phases are one-time phases, but maintenance will always go on in the organization. So, the last phase, which is the maintenance phase, is an ongoing phase. Now, let us look at all these phases in details. So, we will start with the first phase, which is project identification and selection. In this phase, the user identifies the need for a new or improved system. Why are we doing the SDLC? Because we want to develop a new information system. But why do we want to develop a new information system? Because the user identified the need for a new or improved system and came up to the analyst. So, there are two scenarios here. The first is the user wants a completely new system, or the second option is that the user says the existing system can be improved by adding certain new features. So, the user comes up with a request for either a new system or an improved system. Information requirements of the organization as a whole are examined, and projects to meet these requirements are proactively identified. Now, once the user comes up with the need for a new or improved system, the analyst will study or examine the information requirements of that particular organization, and then he will come up with projects to meet those requirements. Not just one project, but many alternative projects will be decided which can meet the requirements of that organization, and those projects are identified. So, in smaller organizations, determination of which systems to develop may be effected by user requests submitted, as well as from a formal information planning process. This is in case of smaller organizations. During project identification and selection, an organization determines whether or not resources should be devoted to the development or enhancement of each information system under consideration. So, it is during this phase, that is the project identification phase, which we are studying right now, and selection phase, the organization would determine that okay, we want to come up with a new system or an improved information system, but whether or not we should devote the resources of the organization for the development or enhancement. Development when you want a completely new information system, enhancement when you want an improved information system. So, whether we should devote the resources of the organization for the development or the enhancement of the information system which is being considered, these things are also considered by the organization. The outcome of the project identification and selection process is a determination of which system development projects should be undertaken by the organization, at least in terms of an initial study. So, as I said, during project identification and selection, first of all the user comes up with the requirements, then the system analyst analyzes those requirements, and as per the requirements of the organization comes up with various projects which could meet the requirements of the organization. Now, the outcome of this phase would be that out of all the alternative projects, the system analyst would decide which few projects should be undertaken by the organization in terms of an initial study. So, for an initial study, which are a fewer of the projects which I can select from all the available projects for this organization. This is decided by the system analyst in this very phase. Then, after project identification and selection, the next phase is project initiation and planning. When the project has been identified, and out of all the identified projects, a few of the projects have been undertaken and or selected, then the next step is to start up with it, alright. So, that is why project is initiated and planned. So, project initiation and planning is the second phase. The problems that are identified should be investigated and a decision to implement the information system or not for the organization should be taken. So, whatever problem the user came up with in the first phase, those problems are identified here. What are the problems that the organization is facing, and those problems big enough so that a decision to implement a new information system should be taken or not. This is decided by the system analyst. A critical step at this point is the scope of the proposed system. Now, it is very important for the analyst to determine what would be the scope of the new proposed information system. The project leader and initial team of system analyst also produce a specific plan for the proposed project, which team will follow using the remaining SDLC steps. So, the project leader and the initial team of system analyst, out of all the members of the system analyst team, there is one project leader and there is an initial team which initiates the entire process of SDLC. So, these people will produce a specific plan for the proposed information system project, and which this initial team and project leader will then follow using the remaining SDLC steps. The remaining SDLC steps means from the third step of SDLC onwards. The final presentation with the subsequent project phase is usually made by the project leader and other team members to someone in management committee with the job of deciding which projects the organizations will undertake. As I told you, in the first phase of SDLC, all the candidate projects are identified which could meet the requirements of the system. Then in the second phase of SDLC, that is the project initiation and planning, out of all those candidate projects, few projects are selected. So, in this phase, in this very phase, that is in the project initiation and planning phase, then at the end of this phase, the final presentation with all those subsequent projects which were chosen out of the candidate projects, a presentation is made by the project leader or the team leader along with other team members to obviously someone in the management committee of the organization, and then the management committee of the organization decides which project the organization will undertake. Third phase is the analysis phase. Now, during the analysis phase, the analysis has several sub phases. This analysis phase is divided into several sub phases. The first sub phase is requirement determination. So, in this sub phase, that is requirement determination, the analyst works with the users to determine the expectations of users from the proposed system. So, as I said, this is the requirement determination sub phase. So, in this sub phase, what the analyst is doing, he is working with the users because he wants to find out what are the expectations of the users from the proposed system. Next, in the next sub phases, the requirements are structured in accordance to their interrelationship and eliminate any redundancies. See, there will be multiple requirements of the users from the information system. So, all those requirements cannot be put at the same step. So, there are different steps for different requirements. That means they will be structured in a particular order, and in according to what? According to the interrelationship of those requirements with each other, and then if there are any redundant requirements, those will be eliminated. And alternative initial designs are generated to match the requirements. So, next step is, in the analysis phase, you also generate initial designs for the information system, and obviously not just one but alternative initial designs are generated which could match those requirements. Then these alternative designs are compared to determine which alternative design would best meet the requirements, and in terms of cost and labor to commit to development process. If those are alternative designs, obviously to some extent all of them would be meeting the requirements. But out of all the alternative requirements, which one are more feasible in terms of cost and labor? That means which one would best meet the requirements in terms of cost and labor to commit to development process, that one would be chosen. That means one which is less costly and requires less labor. Now, in the analysis phase, feasibility study of the proposed system is also performed. So, feasibility studies are basically divided into these categories: technical feasibility, economic feasibility, behavioral feasibility, operational feasibility, legal feasibility and time feasibility. See, these are the feasibilities basically which are studied for the feasibility study of any project. When I say technical feasibility, that means the hardware and software concepts. So, whether the project is feasible as per the software and technical concepts. Economic feasibility, whether this project is cost effective or not. Behavioral feasibility, what would be the response of the project to the users, that means what output the project is providing, whether that is sufficient enough or not. Operational feasibility means whether the functioning of the project is optimum or not. Legal feasibility means if there are any legalities involved in the project, whether it would be feasible or not. Time feasibility means whether the project would be prepared in due time or scheduled time or not. So, all these studies are performed for a project, and if a project is found to be feasible for all these things, then the proposed system is taken ahead. Otherwise, the proposed system is, if it is not feasible to develop, it is rejected at this very step. Now, after the analysis phase is complete, design of the system begins. Once we are done with the analysis phase, once we have done all the feasibility studies, the next step is to design the system. The design consists of logical and physical design of the system. When we talk of system design, it can be divided into two parts: the logical design of the system and the physical design of the system. During design phase, the analysts convert the description of the recommended alternative solutions into logical and then physical system specifications. All aspects of the system, which starting from the input screen, output screen, to all the reports that would be generated, the database that would be used and various computer processes that would be involved, all these aspects are studied, all these system specifications are given. Design occurs in two phases, as I said, the logical and physical design. Now, we will start with the logical design. The next phase, that is the fourth phase of SDLC, is the logical design of the system. Logical design is not tied to any specific hardware or system software platform. As I said, it is a logical design. So, it can be run on any specific any hardware or any software in future. As of now, we are just concentrating on the logic of the design, right? Conceptual design. So, it has got nothing to do with a specific hardware or a specific software. Theoretically, the system could be implemented on any hardware and system software as per the system specifications, but the logical design only concentrates on the basic aspects of the system. Then the fifth phase is the physical design. In the physical design phase, the logical design is turned into the physical or technical specifications. Basically, what we have conceptualized is now going to be actually designed. So, the logical design is converted or turned into the physical or technical specifications. As an example, to differentiate between logical and physical design, I can tell you that logical design is just like the algorithms which are not implemented and which are not bound to any specific hardware or software, but you are clear with the logic of the system, of the particular program when you are making the algorithm. And once the algorithm is made, you can implement it in any programming language, on any specific software, any specific hardware. So, that is kind of physical design. The programming part is the physical design and the algorithm part is the logical design, wherein you decide what all modules would be there in the system, how we would actually implement this system, what would be the logic for implementing that system. So, once that is decided in the physical design, this very logical design is turned into physical or technical specifications. The final product of the design phase, this is in the physical design only. So, the final product of the physical design phase is the physical system specifications. That means, at the end of this physical design, we finally come up with the physical system specifications, which are in a form ready to be turned over to the programmers. Now, the programmers are ready to take over, because now they know what software requirements are, what hardware requirements are, what modules of the system would be what is expected, what logic is expected of this out of the system. So they are in a form which are ready to be handed over to the programmers and other system builders, that means the team of programmers, for the final construction of the information system. The sixth phase is the implementation phase. Now, once you are ready with the final hardware and software specifications, logic and modules of the system, and everything is handed over to the programmers, obviously the next step would be the implementation phase, because it is the programmers who would finally implement the information system. So, during this implementation phase, system specifications are turned into a working system. Whatever system specifications have been provided to the programmers, they would now turn it into working system by doing a coding of it, and that is tested and put into use. So when a working system is ready, it is tested and put into use at various sub stages. So module by module testing is done by putting that each module into use. Implementation, basically when I talk of implementation, it is not just coding the system. Implementation includes everything from coding to testing and installation. You code, then you install and test it, then you code another module, install and test it. So this is how implementation takes place. So during coding, programmers write programs that make up the system. I don't think I need to tell you this, you all are professionals in this field. So coding, obviously you know that during coding, programmers, what do? They write the programs that make up the system. During testing, programmers and analysts test the individual programs and entire system in order to find the correct errors. So obviously during the testing, as I said, these testing of not just the entire system but each and every module is performed. So module by module you test the system, and then when every module is tested, you test the entire system altogether, so that you can find out the correct errors at the right time. During installation, the new system becomes a part of the daily activities of the organization. Finally, when all the errors have been found in the system and corrected, then is the next step, which is the installation step. And during this step, the new information system which is developed becomes a part of the organization. It is installed in that organization and it becomes a part of their daily activities, because the users of that organization would now be using it on a daily basis. Application is installed on either a new or existing hardware. It depends upon the hardware specifications that have been provided. If in the specifications the same hardware is mentioned, then the application would be installed on the existing hardware. If in these specifications a new hardware is mentioned, then that application would be installed on a new hardware. And users are introduced to the new system, and introducing them to the new system means obviously providing them the required training so that they can use that system. After the installation of the system can be done, after the installation we can see what are the phases or ways in which installation of the system can be done. So when you want to install the system, the new information system at the user side, there are three ways in which you can install it at the user's site. One is direct conversion. In this type of installation or in this type of conversion, software is directly installed at user's site. Then comes parallel conversion. In this type of conversion, both the old and new systems are run in parallel for some time. So basically parallel conversion is in scenarios where users are either very reluctant to use the new system, so they keep the old system for some time, and new system is also installed so that the users can take their own time to accustom themselves for the new system. Then after monitoring the new system for a reasonable period of time, whether the users are comfortable enough with the new system or not, whether the new system is performing well enough or not, after monitoring all these systems for a reasonable period of time, and if the system is performing well, then there is no need to keep the old system. The new system is implemented, replacing the old system. Then is a phased conversion kind of installation, wherein the system is installed module by module. As the name says, phased conversion, that means the system is installed, the new information system is installed in various phases. So you do not install the entire information all at once, but as and when each module is ready and tested, after that those modules are installed at the user's site. So one module is ready, you install that module. Other module is ready, you test it and then install that module. So module by module you install the system at the user site. This is phased conversion. Now the next or the last phase is the maintenance, and as I said, unlike other phases, this is an ongoing phase because you need to maintain your system throughout the life cycle, throughout the life of the organization, unless you want a new information system completely. So the final phase is maintenance. When a system is operating in an organization, users sometimes find problems with how it works and often think of better ways to perform its functions. Obviously, with time and with changing requirements of the users, with changing requirements of the organization, you would always want new characteristics or new features in the existing information system. So introducing those new characteristics or new features in the information system as and when required with the passage of time comes under maintenance, and this is an ongoing thing. Also, the organization's requirements change with time. As I said, anybody's requirements can change with time, be it the users or organizations, and to fit in those requirements you have to continuously keep changing the functionalities or features of the information system, which is what you call maintenance. Now during maintenance, programmers make the changes that users ask for and modify the system to reflect and support changing business conditions. According to the changing business conditions, the demands of the users change. So for that purpose, the programmers make the necessary changes in the information system and modify it so that it can reflect and support the changing business conditions. These changes are necessary to keep the system running and useful. Obviously, if you don't do these changes, the system would be no longer useful. So these changes are necessary to keep the system running properly and useful. Now maintenance can be of three types. The first maintenance is corrective maintenance. In this type, the errors that creep into the system are removed. It is possible after installing the system, there are certain errors that creep into the system. So the removal of those errors is known as corrective maintenance. Then the other type of maintenance is the adaptive maintenance. In this maintenance, it is done to adapt with the changing external factors. Whenever the external factors that affect the organization change, the maintenance that is done to accommodate those changes of the organization is known as the adaptive maintenance. As an example of adaptive maintenance, consider a scenario wherein you have an information system that generates the salary of the employees of the organization. So they must be getting some DNS allowance also. Now if the government changes its rules regarding the DNS allowance and says that from now onwards the DNS allowance that the employees of the organization would get will be increased from 52% to 58%, then obviously changes will have to be made in the information system, otherwise it will generate wrong salary. So changes will have to be made in the information system to increase the DNS allowance also from 52% to 58% so that it adapts with the changing scenario. So such kind of an maintenance is known as adaptive maintenance. The third and last kind of maintenance is the perfective maintenance. This is done to satisfy the user's requirements to make the system more and more perfect. So this is basically to achieve perfection in a particular information system. The particular information system may be satisfying the user's requirement, but if you want that the users are completely satisfied, or with time the satisfaction level of the user decreases and he says, okay, this is better, but this is good, but if you add these new features to the information system, it could become even better. So they are longing for perfection. So such a maintenance wherein you make changes to the information system to satisfy the user requirements to make the system more perfect is called perfective maintenance. SDLC, or the system development life cycle, is a highly linked set of phases. When I say highly linked set of phases, that means each phase is linked to every other phase. The phase below is obviously linked to the phase above it, and the phase above is also linked to the phase below it. So it is a highly linked set of phases where output of one phase serves as input to the subsequent phases. That is why all the phases are sequential here. So this is the concept of system development life cycle or SDLC. These are all the 7 phases of SDLC.